As a proud Colorado native, I have two duties and two duties alone. One, respect the mountains. Two, talk about the Coors gigantic dumpster fire of an SAP failure. We can survive altitude, snowstorms, but we cannot survive not getting beer to stores, SAP. We are not here to dog these businesses, okay? We are here to take these learnings, especially in the private sector, that big consulting and big tech doesn't want you to talk about because they profit off of your confusion and just unawareness of this entire process. What we're not doing is losing hundreds of millions of dollars anymore because big software takes advantages of us, and that's the importance of having these conversations. MillerCoors was part of these bigger beer acquisitions in the 2010s. So they were already a very heavy SAP shop, and really they were too heavy was their biggest issue. They had 7 different SAP systems that were kind of squished together based on different industry mergers and acquisitions. This was very much a post-merger cleanup process, which we see a lot, where we take fragmented SAP systems and try to turn them into a single source of truth. So we're actually getting good data to make good business decisions. The issue with this is they did a bad job of consolidating that in conjunction with their partners. Speaking of partners, MillerCoors worked with HCL, which is headquartered out of India, and they were the main SI on this project. They are the defendant in this case. They were the ones that were sued for over $100 million for gross negligence, breach of contract, and failure to deliver a working system. So in 2013, MillerCoors hires SCL to be their implementation partner. They outbid Infosys for the work. This contract was massive for the time. It was over $50 million. And what they really wanted to do was release an RFP for brewer season constraints, which I didn't even know was a thing. But they, like seasonality of any businesses, wanted realistic timelines, staffing, like how much work is this going to be? They go back and forth, execute the agreement in January of 2014, so they really get started on the work. And already in October of 2014, disputes start to arise over process blueprint quality. And we start to hear the same story over again. HCL is like, hey, this is much more work than we anticipated, and you didn't give us what we needed in the initial bid, so we need to create change orders to increase the price. So they asked for another about $10 million, and they agreed upon that to move forward with the project. So they choose a go-live date of October of 2015. And within that, they amend to kind of de-scope a few things so that they can reach this go-live date that they're focused on. Shocking to absolutely no one, they don't end up reaching that date. And come November of 2015, MillerCoors is like, what's going on? So HCL pushes it into production with over 50 to 80 known defects. These aren't just little bugs, right? Again, there are these critical high severity issues. This is another common tactic when you are feeling the pressure as a system integrator. You split things into what we call phase 2. Well, I always say phase 2 is where functionalities go to die so that you can meet the client's expectation by going live with a really shitty system just to say, oh, we're going to get to that in the next phase. Just to be so clear with you, that's not how that works. And don't let anyone say that to you. I'm also going to say that no SI can force a steering committee to go live with known issues. These governance gates agreed to go live for MillerCoors with knowing there was core order fulfillment and warehouse flow issues. That's on them. What we can read the writing on the wall here is that MillerCoors realized that they were totally lowballed in the initial bid, and that HCL realized that MillerCoors, because of this shifting in who actually owns it with mergers and acquisitions, completely lacks leadership buy-in. Not a great combination just in general. We're still in 2015, right? And they're discovering thousands of defects with the system. It's a quality assurance nightmare. And I'm talking about like significant failures in every major process path, like variant failing, standard order of cash. Some people were getting products, some weren't. Like it was an absolute disaster. Warehouse flows were wildly unstable. They had putting away, picking, staging, loading, and good issues that were blocked, right, by certain configuration logic. They were missing master data, technical errors, edge cases actually exploded. See this all the time. Any scenario that's even slightly a little bit off of that happy path, rushed orders, partial shipments, returns, all of those other pieces weren't tested and turned into a massive amount of tickets. In January of 2016, HCL has the audacity to say, hey, we went live, we hit that milestone, so we're going to go ahead and invoice you. Obviously, that doesn't go over well with MillerCoors, and they send this formal letter to HCL and it's like, hey, you need to fix these defects like now. They also called out like their qualified personnel. Again, something that we see, they bring these pretend experts in that aren't actually experts at all. Again, it's the audacity of these system integrators to be like, hey, I totally messed up your project. But they submitted another change request in June of 2016 for $6 million to rework the warehouse management design and said, hey, you didn't really give us the right scope or timeline in the original deal. It's really the nail in the coffin. MillerCoors issued a notice of termination to HCL, saying that his contract rights were broken and that they needed a new supplier to fix their issues. In October of 2016, another kind of interesting step happens to kind of heighten the intensity here is that Molson Coors, they purchased a stake in MillerCoors, and that closes. So now MillerCoors, who now wholly owns Molson Coors, stay with me, right, raises that stakes on having to explain to these new owners, like, oh, by the way, we have this completely botched system. Sorry about that. They're still over here accruing all of these reimplementations, remediations. As I always say, the most expensive part about a technology implementation is the re's, to kind of try and fix this garbage system. And finally, in March of 2017, they file an official lawsuit against their system integrator for over $100 million in the North District of Illinois. HCL then fires a countersuit in June of 2017 saying, actually, MillerCoors, their leadership had no idea what their operational capacity or competencies was, and they're just using us as a scapegoat for their failed project. Throughout 2017 and 2018, they're just exchanging these blows, right? With their lawyers accusing, Miller's accusing HCL of gross negligence, HCL accusing Miller's of incompetence, and then they were bullying them. By late 2018, they settle, right? And really what's interesting is nobody owes anybody any money in this. They completely dismiss the case, and the court makes no findings of fault either or for against any of the parties. The moral of this story is you can absolutely outsource delivery, but you cannot outsource accountability. Big SIs are going to be shady, so your only ammo in this conversation is knowing the contracts and knowing your own requirements. We see these types of huge, embarrassing failures for these brands when really they could have been avoided by adding that exit ramp in that contract to make sure that if, God forbid, this does happen, that you have a way out that's going to save your technology and your business.